China tells Walmart to respect the feelings of the Chinese people. This after the retailer apparently removed Xinjiang-related goods from its stores. This bleeding woman was 8 months pregnant, but a Chinese hospital refused to take her in time due to lockdown restrictions. Beijing takes another step to control Chinese cyberspace. Now, it seems mobile apps that may influence public opinion will require a security review. Taiwan's Air Force shows off its combat readiness amid heightened tensions with China. Military jets screamed into the sky as they practiced a drill simulating a war scenario. And a year of record losses for China's tech tycoons. Because of the pandemic, Beijing's clampdown, and U.S. sanctions, almost a quarter of China's tech wealth was wiped away. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Before we start today's daily news, we have a short announcement. As you may already know, YouTube has demonetized us for about a year. That means our ability to run ads or earn money on YouTube has been taken away. So if you like our coverage, you could donate to show your support. Here's how. In the description box down below, there's a link that will take you through the entire process. Thank you for your continued support, and we look forward to providing you with more insights into China in the year ahead. China is calling Walmart stupid after the retailer apparently removed products made in Xinjiang from its stores. But Walmart representatives are saying the whole situation is just a misunderstanding.
Walmart is the latest Western firm in trouble with China after a unit of the firm appeared to remove from sale products made in Xinjiang province. That is the region where Beijing faces accusations that it operates forced labour camps. Members-only warehouse Sam's Club was said to have removed the products last week. Now a Sam's Club representative has denied there was any such removal, saying it's all a misunderstanding. He says the products only appeared absent due to the way the firm's search function operates. However, the controversy has seen a wave of membership cancellations by Sam's Club customers in China. And it's just the latest corporate crisis over Xinjiang. Walmart itself has also been accused of removing products from the region. Other Western firms, including fashion retailer H&M and chip maker Intel, have come under fire for adjusting their businesses over Xinjiang.
Sam's Club is a retail warehouse by Walmart. The situation sparked fury on Chinese social media. China's anti-graft agency has called Walmart stupid and short-sighted. And the agency also told the company to show sincerity and to, quote, respect the feelings of the Chinese people if it wants a footing in China's market. Customer service from Walmart said that the situation was due to inventory problems. This situation happened around the same time that the U.S. banned imports from Xinjiang. Now we look to a post that's going viral on the Chinese internet platforms. The woman in the video is bleeding. She was 8 months pregnant and suffering apparent complications. But the hospital refused to treat her due to the local lockdown restrictions. She lives in a city in central China called Xi'an. Officials there have put the city's 13 million residents under strict lockdown, and most hospitals there are shut down. A relative of the pregnant woman posted the video online. The video caption says she was looking for treatment from a hospital. They go on to explain that she was turned away because she didn't have a negative COVID-19 test result from within 4 hours of going to the hospital. She reportedly waited 2 hours outside the hospital for treatment while bleeding. Doctors eventually took her in, but she ended up losing her 8-month-old unborn child because the treatment came too late. This video was shared over 40,000 times before getting deleted, but it has since sparked outcry online. A related hashtag has attracted over 900 million views and over 120,000 discussions. One internet user left a comment saying the sign outside the hospital says emergency center, but it refused to save a pregnant woman who was on the brink of miscarrying. And it appears the woman's case is one of multiple in Xi'an. Another internet user reported the same hospital refused to take her sister in, also because of an expired COVID-19 test. The user said her sister waited for 2 hours outside the hospital, crying her eyes out, but had to go back home because the hospital wouldn't take her. Local authorities say they are investigating the incident. With Xi'an city under an extreme lockdown, it appears hospitals there not only turn away pregnant women, but also other patients in need of emergency care. In a social media post, a woman says her father had a sudden heart attack, but said the hospital in Xi'an he went to refused to take him in. That's because he's from an area posing virus infection risk. She later updated the post, saying a hospital had finally accepted her father, but explained that rescue failed because it was too late, adding, "I lost my dad." Social media posts like hers are among the few ways the outside world can learn about what's actually happening in Xi'an. Stories like these rarely make their way into China's state-controlled media reports, which are often filled with videos praising the regime, like clips showing officials helping to deliver food, or police officers assisting residents in getting medical care. But residents have been complaining about food shortages online, and videos show some of them have turned to bartering, trading cigarettes for vegetables or an iPhone for a bag of rice. These incidents come alongside authorities' harsh lockdown measures. It's part of Beijing's policy, using any means necessary to eliminate every last virus case in the country. A China analyst says Beijing isn't likely to drop the policy despite the humanitarian cost. Timing is also important, as Beijing is set to host the Winter Olympics in a month.
It's pretty obvious that Beijing is trying to stamp out the virus infections in Xi'an before kickstarting the Winter Olympics, just so the pandemic won't steal the show from Beijing.
Authorities have ordered Xi'an to ensure no virus patients are present in public space by January 4th. But to meet that goal, some infected patients were taken out of Xi'an and sent to quarantine in nearby areas.
Beijing sees the Winter Olympics as the perfect opportunity to improve its image and show the world a rising China. So it needs to contain the virus in Xi'an city as soon as possible, so the international community won't focus their attention on it.
Aside from the Winter Games, Tang says the zero-case policy is a game that Beijing can't afford to lose.
The zero-case policy push, the lockdowns, Beijing was able to do it because it's an authoritarian state and has strict control over its population. And officials believe that this model is superior and more effective than the antivirus measures in democratic countries. If Beijing can't control the virus in Xi'an, then it can't brag that authoritarian states are superior to democracies.
That's something he says poses an enormous political cost for the Chinese Communist Party. The pandemic in China's Xi'an continues to paralyze the city. Local authorities are facing criticisms at home and abroad for their draconian virus control measures. So they've come up with a way to prevent negative coverage. Let's take a look.
Beijing has issued orders for Xi'an to meet its zero-infection target as soon as possible. To achieve that goal, city authorities instead started relocating high-risk individuals to the suburbs. In recent days, the city has also come up with other creative ideas, sealing off people's doors, stationing guards at neighborhood entrances to prevent people from leaving, or simply moving quarantined patients into traffic tunnels, parking garages, or shabby isolation centers.
You are just not allowed to go out. The pandemic is still quite serious. For example, in the neighborhood, if you want to go downstairs to take a walk, police cars will come. They will ask you to go back home and won't allow you to get out.
But measures like these have triggered pushback. To ease the public pressure, local authorities are pulling out a typical tactic from the Chinese regime's playbook. They issued a notice through messaging app WeChat on Wednesday, asking netizens to stop spreading so-called negative news, or else their group chats will be censored. Early Wednesday morning, many Xi'an residents received what was labeled an important notice from authorities on WeChat. It reads, "During the virus control period, the people of Xi'an should be united. In response to the government's call, starting at midnight on January 4, group chats are not allowed to send out gossip, links, or videos about the pandemic situation, especially negative news. If any negative news is spread, the group will be blocked. We hope everyone will pay attention and spread the word." The notice came after news about one woman's late-term miscarriage. caused by strict hospital virus measures, became a top trending topic on Weibo. While that's happening, Xi'an authorities announced on Wednesday that they have basically succeeded at achieving Beijing's zero COVID goal.
The Beijing Winter Olympics is just a month away. Despite pandemic concerns and criticisms of China's human rights record, Beijing says the Games will follow the schedule from February 4th to 20th. The U.S. was the first to announce a diplomatic boycott in early December. It says its government officials would not attend the Games because of Beijing's atrocities in the Xinjiang region, but athletes are still going. Other democracies, including the UK, Canada, and Australia, soon join the U.S. Among European Union states, so far only Lithuania has announced a diplomatic boycott. And 2 German ministers have said they personally wouldn't go to Beijing. Meanwhile, China is busy preparing for the Games right now. On Monday, Olympic staff rehearsed a medal ceremony at the Medals Plaza in Beijing. The International Olympic Committee, or IOC, said in September that the tickets will be sold only to spectators from China. And unvaccinated athletes must quarantine for 21 days before the Games. A safety measure Beijing is taking is called the closed-loop management system. According to the IOC's explanation, fully vaccinated athletes would enter the system immediately upon arrival. The system covers all Games-related areas, including stadiums, catering facilities, and accommodations. Participants and staff are restricted to these places, while other people are banned from entering them. It's to prevent any contact between people inside and outside the system. Everyone in the system will be tested daily. And the air quality in Beijing is another concern. The city is very prone to smog. Communist leader Xi Jinping has vowed to run a green Olympics. But China's Ministry of Ecology and Environment is still warning about the risks of severe smog. China's cyberspace regulators issued new draft rules on Wednesday, this time on smartphone apps.
The Cyberspace Administration of China says apps that could influence public opinion will need a security review. With the proposed rules, Beijing would gain further control over China's internet, which is already highly censored. The new proposals would apply to apps that launch what authorities call new technologies, new applications, and new functions capable of influencing opinion or mobilizing the public. Such app providers would need to undergo a security assessment first. But regulators are unclear as to what functions or technologies could influence public opinion. Still, the rules would apply to text, picture, voice, video, and other information production. They would also apply to instant messaging, news, online forums, live streaming, and e-commerce. On top of that, news apps must obtain licenses to publish contents. China's news industry is mainly backed by the regime and highly censored. What's more, the regulators also combined previous laws into one set of rules on Wednesday. For example, users must also sign up for apps using their real identity. This is nothing new in China. A person's identity is linked to state-issued ID cards, as well as cell phone numbers. The regulators say the rules are open to public comment and will become effective this year, but they didn't give an exact date. Over the past year, Beijing has tightened regulations across its domestic technology sectors, from gaming to real estate to education. On Tuesday, the cyberspace regulator also announced it would implement 2 new rules. One rule applies to platform companies with over 1 million users. They have to go through a security review before they could list overseas. This would take effect in February. The other rule governs how companies could use recommendation algorithms, and this would take effect in March.
Taiwan is preparing for the worst situation. Its Air Force is simulating how to intercept Chinese air incursions in a drill. NTD's Don Ma has the details.
The drill took place on Wednesday at a base in the south of the island. The base is home to F-16 fighter jets, one of the most advanced military planes in the world. The exercises were part of a 3-day drill to show Taiwan's battle readiness. Chinese warplanes frequently fly into Taiwan's air defense identification zone, and in recent months, such Chinese incursions have increased. Taiwan's defense ministry says that the situation in the region is serious.
The enemy's military threat has always existed. We explained to our people several times that the situation in our region is very severe. The reasons the armed forces are reinforcing their defense capabilities during the Lunar New Year period is to let people know that we are here to assure national security during the holiday season.
Taiwan has termed China's activities as gray zone warfare. In a New Year message to China, Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen said that military conflict is not the answer. Don Ma, NTD News.
2021 wiped away almost a quarter of China's tech wealth. The moguls in the industry lost a sum of money that's as high as the GDP of the state of West Virginia. NTD's Evelyn Lee reports.
It's a record year for China's tech tycoons, according to Bloomberg. But that's bad news for the tycoons. China's clampdown this year left its mark. The country's 10 richest in the tech industry alone lost $80 billion. That's almost a quarter of their combined wealth. Topping the list is Colin Huang, founder of e-commerce site Pinduoduo. 2/3 of his fortune evaporated when the shares of his business plunged almost 70%. Alibaba is also high on the list after the regime clamped down on its business earlier this year. Its CEO had criticized the Chinese regime publicly shortly before. In the U.S., on the other hand, tech stocks had a big year. Google's Alphabet wrapped up its best year since 2009. Its stock rallied almost 70%. Microsoft followed closely, up 50%, and Apple 30%. During the pandemic, consumers flocked to the web while stuck at home and working from home. Chen Zhiwu, the director of Asia Global Institute, says that for China, the best days of its tech sector are over. After the clampdown, China's tech giants reportedly had to fall in line with national priorities. And in the wake of Xi Jinping's so-called common prosperity plans for China, some of those CEOs donated billions to the effort. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
Shares of China Huarong Asset Management are dropping to a record low. Value of its shares in Hong Kong plunged by up to 55% on Wednesday. Huarong is the largest of 4 Chinese state-owned companies that deal in debt management. It takes bad debt or non-performing loans off of the country's state-owned banks. The price of its shares is the lowest since Huarong's listing, and it comes after the company resumed trading on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange after a 9-month hiatus. The company suspended trading in April last year after it missed a deadline to file its 2020 earnings. In August, the company announced a $16 billion loss for 2020. Then in November, the company received help from state-backed investors. They gave the company over $6 billion as part of a rescue plan. Also last year, the company's former chairman was executed for bribery and corruption. He was found guilty of taking over $280 million in bribes over a 10-year period. Chinese stock markets surged about 20% last year. The growth seals China's position as the world's second-largest equity market. At the same time, Chinese stocks listed in the U.S. were hit hard. Why are these two markets so different? NTD's Faye Quarter has the details.
Unlike the offshore market, stock markets in mainland China surged to a roughly $12.7 trillion valuation last year. The increase is partly in thanks to modest price gains and a rush of new listings in either Shanghai or Shenzhen.
We see a pattern of trying to raise funds from the Chinese corporations and also trying to prevent capital flight by having these Chinese companies delist from the U.S. stock market and forcing them to bring the capital back home.
According to S&P data, the total value of onshore Chinese stocks rose about 20%, the equivalent of over $2 trillion last year. In contrast, Chinese stocks listed in the U.S. or Hong Kong decreased by 42%, losing about $758 billion of value. Some industrial experts think China wants to shift its focus to developing advanced technologies and manufacturing. China affairs analyst Jingyuan Tang explains why he thinks the Chinese regime is clamping down on the consumer internet sector.
In the past, the Chinese Communist Party tended to copy the American economic model, which is using finance and digital technology to drive economic growth and achieve industrial upgrades. However, after a round of regulatory storm, Xi chose a different path, that is, learning from Germany's model, basing economic growth on the real economy, including manufacturing. He thinks this is sustainable development.
China specialist Ping Zhang thinks the problem is all about the shortage of money in China right now.
The government doesn't want them to invest overseas, so they can keep the Chinese money inside of China.
Zhang says in closed societies like China, the political consideration is always an economic consideration.
All investors, especially long-term investors, you want to make sure what you invest is stable and can be predicted in the near future at least. But in a closed society, that's not guaranteed.
Zhang warns that it's extremely risky at this time to invest in China because Xi Jinping is pushing the policy of common prosperity, with the aim to squeeze the rich and redistribute the wealth. The whole investment environment is uncertain. Faye Quarter, NTD News.
North Korea fired a suspected ballistic missile off its east coast today. The missile landed in the sea between the Korean peninsula and Japan, drawing condemnation from both Seoul and Tokyo. And Beijing also appears to follow suit.
On the same day, South Korean president attended a ceremony aimed at connecting with the northern neighbor. North Korea fired a suspected missile.
North Korea test-fired an unidentified projectile this morning, and there are concerns that this could create tension and further deepen the stagnation in inter-Korean relations. But we should not give up the hope for dialogue in order to fundamentally overcome this situation.
The North fired the suspected missile just hours before South Korean President Moon Jae-in attended a groundbreaking ceremony. The ceremony was for a rail line he hoped to one day connect the two countries. But negotiations failed in 2018. Japan's defense minister says the suspected missile flew an estimated 300 miles. And the country's prime minister also commented on the issue on Wednesday.
Since last year, North Korea has repeatedly launched missiles, which is very regrettable.
Meanwhile, the suspected missile also appears to have alarmed neighboring China. On the same day, the Chinese Foreign Ministry called for caution and urged North Korea to open for dialogue.
Under the current circumstances, all parties should bear in mind the bigger picture. Act cautiously.
North Korea has been testing a variety of new short-range ballistic missiles, despite the United Nations banning the country from doing so. The country launched the most recent missile from a submarine in October last year. The U.S. has said that North Korea is trying to design weapons that can evade ballistic missile defense systems in the region. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un vowed to bolster the military in his New Year speech. Talks with South Korea and the U.S. have stalled. Earlier this week, the U.S. State Department reiterated the U.S. desire for dialogue with North Korea.
And that's all for today's China in Focus. But before you go, we have a short announcement. We have our premiere at 9:30 p.m. from Monday to Saturday on TV and our YouTube channel. NTD is available on many platforms, including cable TV, satellite, and over-the-air TV across the U.S., and it continues to grow. Please check out ntd.com/TV. Type in your zip code to find all the ways you can watch our show. That's ntd.com/TV. Thanks for watching, and see you tomorrow.